Argentina are not closing an era, they are getting ready to open the next one. Between 2021 and 2026, La Albiceleste reached 5 major finals, 2 Copa Americas, 1 Finalissima, and 2 World Cups. They lifted 4 continental and intercontinental trophies plus a world title, and then, for years after Qatar, they reached another World Cup final. The loss to Spain ended the hope of back-to-back crowns, but it did not undo what this generation built. This wasn't one golden tournament, one lucky run, or one perfect night. This was 5 straight years of a country living inside finals, over and over, at the highest level the sport offers. That's exactly why 2030 should spark excitement instead of dread. Most nations spend decades waiting for a single golden generation. Argentina just finished building one, and the pieces for the next one are already on the pitch. Yes, several legends will move on. Nicolas Otamendi has already closed his chapter, and figures like Nicolas Tagliafico, Leandro Paredes, Rodrigo de Paul, Giovanni Lo Celso, and other pillars of the Scalonita will be reaching difficult ages by the next World Cup. Emiliano Martínez would be 37. These are not small losses. These are the players who carried the dressing room through Doha, through Miami, through every penalty shootout, and every night when the pressure could have swallowed a lesser group. Replacing what they gave this team emotionally will be just as hard as replacing what they gave it tactically. And then there's Lionel Messi. Messi always deserves an asterisk. In 2030, he'd be 43. Logic says he won't be there, but logic stopped applying to Messi years ago. People said leaving Barcelona was the end. He answered by making Argentina world champions. People said Miami meant stepping away from elite football. Then, at 39, he produced 8 goals and 4 assists at the 2026 World Cup, 12 goal contributions, the most influential attacker of the tournament. Nobody predicted that, and that's the entire point. Every time football has tried to write Messi's ending, he has rewritten the draft himself. If Messi wants one last chapter, that call belongs to him alone, and Argentina would be foolish to close that door before he does. But even without him, Argentina aren't starting from nothing. The next team already has a backbone, and it starts at the back. Cristian Romero and Lisandro Martínez would both be 32 in 2030, prime age for center backs, the years when a defender stops relying on recovery speed and starts relying on reading the game. Cuti has just put up 6 goals and 4 assists while keeping the same aggression that defines his game. He steps in early, reads the striker's first touch before it happens, and wins the ball before it's settled. It's an aggressive, almost reckless style of defending, but it works because he trusts his timing completely. Lisandro brings something different: the left foot, the line-breaking passes, the comfort to drop into midfield during build-up and turn a back 3 into an extra passing option. Together they can anchor the next back line the way Otamendi and Romero anchored this one. Behind them, the goalkeeping picture is just as interesting. Dibu may stay in goal a while longer. His shootout instincts have become a genuine tactical weapon for Argentina. But Santiago Beltran is already rising behind him. At 21, he played 27 matches, conceded 21 goals, and kept 13 clean sheets. Left-footed, 1.91 meters tall, he looks like a genuine option for the future, the kind of goalkeeper who can play with his feet in a system that increasingly demands it. At right back, Agustin Giri offers energy, drive, and pressing intensity that fits exactly what Scaloni has always wanted from his fullbacks: width in possession, discipline out of it. By 2030, he'll still be only 26, entering the peak years of his career just as the rest of this defense matures around him. Midfield, though, might end up being Argentina's deepest strength of all. Enzo Fernández would be 29, Alexis Mac Allister 31. Both arriving in full maturity, both already established as 2 of the best midfielders on the planet rather than promising young players hoping to get there. Enzo produced 15 goals and 7 assists for Chelsea last season, numbers that used to belong to attacking midfielders, not deep-lying playmakers. He's no longer just an organizer sitting in front of the defense. He breaks lines, arrives late into the box, and decides games with genuine end product. Mac Allister played 55 matches for Liverpool with 5 goals and 7 assists, comfortable as a 6, an 8, or an advanced midfielder, a rare kind of versatility that lets Scaloni's successor build the whole midfield around one adaptable player. He resists pressure in tight spaces and turns defense into attack with a single vertical pass, the exact skill that separates a good Argentina midfield from a great one. Behind them, Maximo Perrone offers control as a left-footed holding midfielder, with 3 goals and 4 assists in 41 appearances, a player built to sit deep, recycle possession, and let Enzo and Mac Allister push forward, without exposing the back line. Valentin Barco added 3 goals and 9 assists for Strasbourg, numbers that tell their own story. He's no longer simply a left-back. He's become a hybrid who can carry the ball 40 meters, combine in tight spaces, and break lines from deep positions that used to be reserved for pure midfielders. If Scaloni's successor wants a modern, fluid Argentina, Barco is exactly the kind of player that system gets built around. Replacing Messi's creativity was never going to be one player's job. It has to be shared, spread across 4 or 5 different profiles instead of concentrated in one impossible individual. Nico Paz could become the central piece of that plan. 13 goals and 8 assists this season, comfortable receiving between the lines, turning toward goal, playing as a 10 or drifting in from the right to combine with the fullback. He doesn't need to be the next Messi. Nobody can be, but he can link midfield and attack while Argentina surround him with enough weapons that no single failure sinks the whole system. Franco Mastantuono already has Real Madrid experience at 18, a level of exposure most players don't get until their mid-20s. Claudio Echeverri returns to Manchester City after his loan spells, still developing the close control that made him one of the most hyped South American teenagers in years. Matías Sol put up 7 goals and 8 assists for Roma, while Alejandro Garnacho added 6 goals and 3 assists for Chelsea. 4 completely different attacking profiles, all born within a few years of each other. Mastantuono brings patience and vision, Echeverri brings close control and central carries, Sol brings dribbling and disguised passing, Garnacho brings raw speed in transition. Argentina won't replace Messi with a single copy. They'll split his influence across all 4 of them, and probably a few more nobody has noticed yet. And that's not even everything. The youth ranks keep producing names like Gianluca Prestiani, Marc Harizo, Alejo Sarco, Aaron Anselmino, Milton Delgado, and Julio Soler. Some will make it, some won't. That's true of every country's youth pipeline, and Argentina probably doesn't yet know every player who'll matter by 2030. It's worth remembering that 4 years before the 2026 World Cup, Lamine Yamal and Pau Cubarsí hadn't even started their senior careers. Nobody had heard their names. The next Argentine star, the one who ends up carrying this team through the 2030 knockout rounds, may not have debuted for his club yet, let alone for the national team. That uncertainty isn't a weakness in the project. It's exactly how every great generation starts, invisible until suddenly it isn't. Up front, though, 2 leaders are already firmly in place, and Argentina won't need to gamble on unknown quantities at striker the way some countries do. Julián Álvarez closed the season with 20 goals and 9 assists, pressing, combining, and attacking the space in behind with the relentlessness that made him a Champions League winner. Lautaro Martínez scored 22 goals with 6 assists for Inter and already has 38 for Argentina, a total that keeps climbing every time he wears the shirt. By 2030, Julián would be 30 and Lautaro 32, not prospects anymore, not even in their absolute prime anymore, but 2 complete, proven strikers with a decade of top-level experience behind them, exactly the kind of players a manager builds a tournament run around. Argentina isn't short of anything. They already have elite defenders, midfielders, creators, wide threats, and proven finishers, spread across an age range that lets a smart manager stagger retirements instead of facing them all at once. The real question mark is Lionel Scaloni. His contract runs out in December 2026, and he's left the door open to stepping away. Internally, Argentina could turn to Pablo Aimar, Walter Samuel, or Diego Placeni, all of them already inside the setup, all of them already trusted by the players. But the smartest move, the one that protects everything built over the last 8 years, would be keeping the man who built this culture in the first place. Scaloni has shown, over and over, that he can renew a squad without tearing it down. He blends in young players without handing them places for free, protects internal competition so nobody gets comfortable, and somehow keeps a group of world champions hungry for more, which might be the hardest trick in football. Plenty of winning teams get comfortable the moment they lift a trophy. History is full of golden generations that peaked once and then slowly decayed because nobody wanted to make the hard calls. Scaloni's Argentina reached another World Cup final anyway, for years after Qatar, with half the squad rotated. That isn't luck. That's culture, built deliberately, year after year, decision after decision. Argentina won't be rebuilding from zero in 2030. They'll arrive as 2026 finalists and reigning world champions from 2022, with players established at Europe's biggest clubs and a new generation already performing at an elite level before they've even turned 25. And that should worry everyone else, because the most dangerous national teams in football history were never the ones with one great generation. They're the ones capable of replacing that generation without losing their identity in the process. Brazil in the 1990s, Spain in the 2010s, France across 2 decades. Argentina is trying to join that list. This won't be the same Argentina that beat France in Losail. But the next great Argentina is already being born, quietly, in academy graduation photos and loan spells across Europe that most fans haven't noticed yet. When Lionel Scaloni took over Argentina in 2018, almost nobody believed in him. The national team had just crashed out of the World Cup in Russia, completely broken, frustration, division, and one painful question hanging over everything. How could Argentina have Lionel Messi and still fail to win anything? They hadn't lifted a major trophy since the 1993 Copa America, 28 years of disappointment, 28 years of nearly teams and heartbreaking penalty shootouts, 28 years of a country wondering if it would ever get to celebrate with its greatest player again. Scaloni arrived with no major managerial resume, no top-flight coaching experience of his own, not even a guarantee he'd keep the job past his first tournament. Most people saw him as a stopgap, a temporary caretaker until the federation found someone with a real name. He became one of the most important managers in the country's history. His first tournament in charge was the 2019 Copa America. Argentina lost the semi-final to Brazil, and on the surface it looked like more of the same old story. But something had already started underneath. Scaloni wasn't building a perfect team, he was building a group, and those are two very different projects. He understood that Argentina didn't need another pile of famous names stitched together on paper. It needed trust, structure, and players willing to run for each other instead of waiting for Messi to solve every problem alone. He surrounded Messi with hungrier, younger players who pressed, tracked back, and covered ground the older stars never had to, taking the entire weight of the team off one man's shoulders for the first time in years. That was the quiet birth of the Scalonita. Then came 2021. Argentina beat Brazil at the Maracanã and ended 28 years of pain in the building where it hurt the most. Ángel Di Maria scored. Argentina held the line under enormous pressure, and Messi finally lifted an international trophy with the senior team. It was more than a win. It was Messi in tears on the podium, and Scaloni embracing the players who had bought into a project everyone else had doubted from the outside. Argentina were champions again, and the shift in the country's mood was immediate. At Wembley soon after, they beat Italy 3-0 in the Finalissima, proving South America's champion could dominate Europe's on a neutral stage, removing any last doubt that the Maracanã result had been a one-off. Then Qatar. The opening loss to Saudi Arabia looked like every old ghost returning at once, the kind of result that used to send Argentina into a tailspin for an entire tournament. But this team didn't break the way earlier ones had. They beat Mexico, survived a tense night against Poland, edged past Australia, outlasted the Netherlands through extra time and penalties, and dismantled Croatia in the semi-final before surviving one of the greatest finals ever played, against France, a match that swung from complete control to sudden chaos and back again. On December 18, 2022, Scaloni made Argentina world champions for the first time in 36 years, and he still wasn't satisfied with what he'd built. In 2024, Argentina won the Copa America again. Messi went off injured, and in tears in the final against Colombia, the kind of moment that could have deflated a lesser squad completely. Instead, the team kept fighting without him, and Lautaro Martínez scored the winner in extra time. That moment says everything about what Scaloni actually changed in this country's football culture. Argentina still had the greatest player of all time on their roster, but they were no longer only Messi, and they proved it in real time, on the biggest stage, in the exact moment it would have been easiest to fall apart. They were Martínez, Romero, De Paul, Paredes, Enzo Fernández, Mac Allister, Álvarez, Lautaro, every player ready to sacrifice for the man standing beside him. Heading into the 2026 final, Scaloni had managed 103 matches, 76 wins, 217 goals scored, only 56 conceded, 61 clean sheets, and a 36-match unbeaten run, the longest in the country's history, a streak that spanned 2 continents and dozens of different lineups. But the numbers barely capture what he actually changed. He handed the national team back to its people, turned anxiety into pride and dependence into togetherness, and turned painful eliminations into a habit of reaching finals, 2 Copa Americas, 1 Finalissima, 1 World Cup win, and in 2026, another World Cup final. He's the first Argentine coach since Carlos Bilardo to reach back-to-back World Cup finals, a comparison that would have sounded absurd for a coach nobody trusted in 2018. That isn't luck. That's culture. The loss to Spain hurt in a way that felt different from every other setback this generation had faced. Scaloni cried afterward and admitted that once his contract ends, he'll need time to think about his future, that he wasn't sure it was possible to build something this special again. For the first time in years, Argentina felt a different kind of fear. Not the fear of losing another final, which this group had shown it could survive and come back from, but the fear of losing the man who built everything in the first place. His story, though, can't be judged by one hard night in a final. He inherited a broken Argentina in 2018 and handed back a family of champions in 2026. He protected Messi when the pressure was at its worst, trusted young players when it would have been easier to lean on famous names, and built a team where nobody stood above the group, including its greatest player. He took over a country that had forgotten how to celebrate its own national team and gave it some of the happiest years in its entire football history. That's exactly why, if he still has the energy for it, he should stay. Messi will eventually leave. More heroes will say goodbye over the next few years. A new generation will need guidance through exactly the kind of pressure this current group learned to handle. And nobody understands this team's culture better than the man who created it from nothing. Scaloni didn't just teach Argentina how to win. He taught them how to trust each other, how to suffer without breaking apart, and how to believe again after 28 years of not believing at all. Right now, the most important position in the Argentina squad isn't striker, goalkeeper, or number 10, it's the bench, and specifically who's standing on it. Everything about the road to 2030 hinges on one question. Will Lionel Scaloni stay? If he does, his next job looks nothing like the one he took in 2018. Back then, he inherited a broken national team with no direction and no trust between the players. Now he'd be inheriting his own masterpiece, which is in some ways a harder thing to manage. He'd need to repeat the exact formula that made his first rebuild work, identify which senior players can still lead, and surround them with the young players pushing for a place, without ever making either group feel disposable. The good news is Argentina isn't starting from scratch this time. Emiliano Martínez can keep leading from goal for a few more years. Romero and Lisandro Martínez have the quality, aggression, and World Cup pedigree to run the defense without needing a settling-in period. Enzo Fernández and Mac Allister should become the permanent midfield anchors. The two names a new era gets built around. Up front, Álvarez and Lautaro can keep supplying goals, and 2 contrasting attacking profiles, bridging the gap between eras the way senior players are supposed to. Around them, Argentina already have Nico Paz, Mastantuono, Sol, Echeverri, Garnacho, Barco, Peroni, and G all pushing from underneath. Not all of them will develop at the same pace, and not all of them will become undisputed starters, but together they prove Argentina already has the raw material for its next great team, and Scaloni has already shown, in real time, that he knows how to manage that kind of transition without breaking the dressing room. When he first arrived, he didn't remove every veteran overnight or start from a blank slate out of pride. He gradually brought in inexperienced players, let them learn beside senior figures who could show them how the group actually worked, and gave them responsibility once they'd earned it rather than because the calendar demanded it. That should be the method again. Don't erase the champions. Use them to prepare their own successors. There's another path, though, and Argentina has to be honest about it. After the 2026 final, Scaloni admitted he needed time to think, and even questioned out loud whether something this special could realistically be built again with a different group of players. If he does leave, Argentina shouldn't panic. The worst possible move would be blowing up the entire project, chasing an instant revolution just to prove a new manager can put his own stamp on things. The priority should be protecting the culture he built, brick by brick, over 8 years. That's why Pablo Aimar, Walter Samuel, and Diego Placeni are the most natural internal options, each offering a different piece of continuity. Aimar has been part of the setup since 2018. He understands the tactical thinking from the inside, knows the dressing room intimately, and has a close relationship with Messi and the younger players coming through. His appointment would offer both emotional and footballing continuity at a moment when the squad needs exactly that. Walter Samuel would bring authority, defensive know-how, and deep familiarity with the squad from his years as Scaloni's assistant, having already contributed heavily to tactical preparation, training sessions, set pieces, and substitutions. His quiet, no-nonsense leadership could suit a difficult transition better than an outsider's louder personality. Placeni brings something different again. He knows the youth pipeline inside out, having worked directly with the under-15s, under-17s, and under-20s, and understands many of the players who could reach the senior team over the next few cycles. His football leans on possession, technical quality, and developing an Argentine player's personality from a young age. He could plug the next generation straight into the first team with almost no adjustment period. Argentina could also look outside the current setup entirely, and there's no shortage of credible names if the federation decides a clean break makes more sense. Marcelo Gallardo would bring intensity and real experience rebuilding competitive squads from his River Plate years, a proven winner used to enormous pressure. Diego Simeone would bring character, discipline, and a defensive clarity that has defined nearly 2 decades of his coaching career. Mauricio Pochettino brings genuine international experience and a strong track record developing young players into first-team regulars. Nestor Lorenzo understands South American football and international management from multiple angles, having coached elsewhere on the continent. Gabriel Heinz would demand aggressive pressing and a bold, committed style, closer in spirit to Scaloni's own approach than any of the others. Each of them would produce a genuinely different Argentina, with different strengths and different risks attached. Whoever ends up taking the job inherits something that seemed completely impossible back in 2018, a healthy national team, a winning culture, experienced champions still in their prime, and a young generation already delivering at Europe's biggest clubs before they've hit their mid-20s. That's why Argentina shouldn't fear what comes next, whichever direction it takes. If Scaloni stays, he can complete another masterpiece, renewing the team piece by piece without ever losing its identity. If he leaves, Samuel or Placeni could protect the structure from within, keeping the culture intact while a new voice takes over. And if Argentina go external, Gallardo, Simeone, Pochettino, Lorenzo, and Heinz are all serious, credible names capable of building something new on an already strong foundation. And there's still one final possibility hanging over all of this: Lionel Messi. By 2030, he'd be 43. For any normal footballer, another World Cup at that age would sound completely impossible, but Messi stopped being a normal footballer a long time ago, and every attempt to measure him against normal aging curves has ended up looking foolish within a year or two. Even playing fewer minutes, even in a reduced role, his presence, experience, and bond with the group could make the dream even bigger than it already is. That decision belongs to him, and to nobody else. But Argentina's future no longer rests entirely on it, and that might be Scaloni's single greatest legacy, building a national team strong enough to survive the eventual departure of the greatest player who ever lived, something almost no country managed to do gracefully with its own generational star. The road to 2030 will bring goodbyes, tough decisions, and sooner or later, whether in 6 months or 4 years, a new manager. This won't be the same Argentina that walked out in Lusail or Miami. It may not have Otamendi, De Paul, Messi, or even Scaloni standing on the touchline. And that, more than any of it, should worry everyone else in world football, because a golden generation ending is normal. A country that builds a second one right behind it is not.